Okay, this is a hitting analysis for none other than Xander Lovin. Xander, we're going to go ahead and break down your swing. We're going to look at some angles, the path. We're going to look at your stance to start off with. Look at the swing, look at some things that you can do better. And this will give you a good idea. I know you've seen it before, so give you a little bit better of an idea of how to change things with some lines and with some visuals in front of you. So what I'm going to do, these are all in slow motion. These are slow motion swings, so we're going to be able to see quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and play one of your swings for you without me drawing anything or saying anything. I'll just let it roll, so you get a good idea of what your swing looks like in slow motion, because a lot of times we don't get to see this. So this was taken, I believe, in week number 3 or 4. You're out on the field. Okay. So let's start off with the setup. Setup in the stance. Fast forward this a little bit to your next swing. Okay, so in your stance, one thing we want to make sure of is we're comfortable. Do you look comfortable? I'd say so. I'd absolutely say that you look comfortable. Another thing that we have to make sure of is our feet, our knees are always inside of our feet. Pretty good there. Pretty good there. Okay, so you are at a good spot there. The next thing that we have to make sure of is that our eyes and our shoulders are giving us the right angle at the pitcher. So if we're looking at your shoulders here, we want to make sure that they aren't too far sloped down, too far sloped up. We want to try and make sure that they're as level as possible. So right there is pretty good. Got to make sure that we got both eyes facing on the pitcher. Doing a pretty good job there. So good stance. I've always liked your stance. Something that you've worked with to get a little bit more comfortable with. Okay, so now let's go to the first movement of what happens with your swing. Put it in play here. So I like the rhythm that you have with your swing. Your hands start to go back. Your foot starts to go forward. Good. Okay, now here's what we want to look at. And I know this is tough because we're working off of a tee, but this can create a lot of problems if we do this too much. Okay, so here's what we got to look at is this angle right here with our shoulders. Okay, so if we're looking at that, it's okay to be down, so that's not what we're looking at. What we're looking at is how far your shoulders are turned in. Okay, so if we're looking at this, and that left shoulder that you have is turned so far in, okay, now we'd rather have it that way than fully open, but what happens is if I get too far in and everything is pushed and turned inward, my first movement, I always talk about this when we hear this, each movement has an equal and opposite reaction. So that means the next movement would be fly open as hard as we can to get our barrel and our hands back to it. So with that, as we go through a little bit more, we can see, play it back a little bit. Okay, still in a pretty good spot. We'll go back to your hands here in a second. Let's watch the shoulder and watch what it does. Okay, see it start to fly? There it goes, start to go. And now look at us. Okay, so we've got that shoulder all the way out. We've got our head coming out with us, and the barrel kind of takes it with us too. Instead of being able to use our hands and use our arms and our levers effectively, we're using it with our shoulders, and we're swinging it with our shoulders. And I think that's part of the reason why that your swing has done this, is right now you don't quite have the muscle to be able to swing it effectively with your hands and arms the way that you'd like to. So that's what ends up happening. So we have to make sure that we aren't swinging something that's too heavy. We aren't trying to hit the ball a million miles per hour every time we're hitting it, especially off the tee. We're working on things to try and slow things down so that shoulder can stay there. Okay, so now let's go forward again. Okay, so let's look at where your hands are at. Pretty good spot. Now, talk about this idea of being connected. Alright, so connection has to come, it comes from your hands and elbow all getting to our back hip at the same time. Okay, so if we're to look at this, which one gets there first? Your elbow gets there first. So when our elbow gets there first, we're leading with our elbows, and we aren't getting connected. We want to think of getting all of those things, all those three things connected, so that when we're throwing the barrel through the zone, it's hip, elbow, and hands all at the same time working together, instead of elbows coming first and then the barrel lagging back behind. Makes for a little bit of a longer and slower swing than what we're looking for. So if we go back just a little bit, watch, watch, watch. Okay, attack, attack, attack. So, and this is something that we've talked about in the past too, but this distance right here gets a little bit long. As that gets a little bit long and away from our shoulder, swing gets a little slower. Now if we go forward a little bit and watch our legs look awesome. You're doing a much better job of using your legs. I think that's a much better job of getting that accomplished. So that's good. That's progress in the right direction. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to load you up next to a big leaguer swing, and you'll be able to see yours and his at the same time. So let's get to that right now.